Nina Verkoeyen!
Сергей Косенко.
How did you realize that you had reached enlightenment?
In 2016, I was at the peak of my niche popularity during that period. I was on the cover of Yoga Journal twice. I taught meditation and yoga. And at some point, I realized that I could no longer bring all these practices, affirmations, visualizations, and meditations into the world. I was, a full-on esoteric seeker. I realized that I was deceiving myself many years in meditations and practices. I have been meditating since I was 11. I created my own original meditation.
So you started meditating 30 years ago?
Yes, that was 30 years ago.
We haven't had people like that here before.
Well, now we have it. And look, Mom came back from that meeting where she was taught how to meditate. Before that, none of us had heard this word. She came and said, "That's it, I'm going to my room," meaning don't distract me, I'm going to meditate. I was like, "Mom, what is this? I want to do it too," but I was 11 years old. Like, what about me? Like, adults can do it, but I can't? And she says, "No, I can't. I was given a special mantra, unique, whispered in my ear. I can't share it with anyone. Now I will meditate every day, repeating this mantra." And she went to meditate. I was very upset. I went to my room and thought, damn it, I will meditate too. I will come up with my own personal mantra. And I took the first word that came to mind. I had some matches lying nearby for candles, and I started repeating the word match to myself. I repeated, and after a few minutes, I was blown away. For the first time in my life, I reached a state that I know I had never been in before. I started laughing, and I felt expansion, liberation, and so on. And when Mom came out of her room, she said that I didn't manage to meditate. I said I did manage. I felt it, she says, like you don't have your own personal mantra. I said I came up with my own personal mantra. And that was the first moment in my life when I realized that no external artifacts, no personal mantras, they don't work, you do, and it doesn't matter what mantra you recite, whether it's a matchstick or, I don't know, any word. If you have the true intention to achieve a certain result, you, being the creator of everything, will achieve that result. Some say it's the power of faith. Others will say it's the power of intention. I won't say it's the power of faith because an ordinary person simply doesn't have any power of faith, as a person is a collection of internal contradictions, conflicts, past emotional baggage, and all of this just tears your faith into billions of pieces. Why?
You say power of faith doesn't exist.
It's impossible. It's impossible to be a person with super strong intention, choice, faith, will, call it whatever you want, if you haven't reached a certain level in your development, a certain state and knowledge of yourself as a creator. But this is the activity that I am engaged in, the knowledge that I carry. I'll repeat myself because, on average, a person has so many doubts, so many internal conflicts, so many of these various programs. He won't be able to channel all his energy and attention into one direction to achieve a super focused, strong intention. In other words, he cannot, simply put, make an uncompromising choice strong enough for that energy to materialize into form. He lacks the energy, resources, and understanding of how to do it. He is a walking internal conflict, and this lack of focus, a walking lack of focus. He doesn't have enough strength.
So what exactly should we do? Look, what did I understand from this? You are kind of saying that what everyone is used to, what everyone says works, doesn't actually work. Am I hearing this right?
A bit exaggerated, but let's leave it like that.
Well, like basically sort of, look, all these things like goals, meditations, beliefs, affirmations, visualizations, like what do you do with all that?
And look, it works. Partially for some people in some cases. In other words, this is not a universal method that works 100% of the time for everyone. It is not the truth.
So is there some kind of truth or not?
Of course.
So I'm interested.
And this truth is universal for every person in this world. It is the truth about who we really are.
How does it reflect on a person's life? Like they are like, I have realized the truth. What happens next?
Yes, look, as soon as you have known yourself, as soon as you have known that you are a creator, only then will you be able to make strong and uncompromising choices. That is, set such a strong intention that it will materialize. Because all the doubts a person has, remember I said before that a person is a walking inner conflict. They have a bunch of doubts. They don't really know what they want. Today they want something. Tomorrow they don't. Their mind is in chaos. He is still a creator. This is the truth about who we are. But he is a creator who does not know himself, who is not aware. An unconscious creator creates chaos because the external is a continuation of what is inside. You have chaos inside, and your external picture is also chaotic, with problems, conflicts, and obstacles. In other words, the external reflects the internal. When you know yourself, you have a true choice for the first time in your life. For the first time in your life, you have a strong intention, the ability to set and create an intention. When you recognize yourself as the creator, your will becomes the will of God. Essentially, I teach how to be God in physical form. To have a will that is your will, connected with the divine will, which is your will. An ordinary person who does not know themselves as a creator, does not know themselves as God, separates themselves from higher powers, from other people, meaning they live in duality, in a state of separation from everything. They do not have a holistic perception of this world, and they cannot, I repeat, they cannot make their intention strong enough. If he makes it strong enough, it comes at the expense of other areas of life. That is, he sacrifices health, relationships, and I don't know, maybe even himself. For example, you can achieve a lot through relentless pursuit. But the question is, will you be truly happy and fulfilled?
So let's talk a bit about practical matters. How many students do you have?
Well, in the last year of 2023, several 100,000 people have gone through my free programs and several thousand through the paid ones. Not as many as I would like, but we will fix that now with the help of a tool named Sergey.
So you understand that if I can fix the traffic, meaning I can highlight you, show what you are doing, but if your conversions are not very high, then it means the issue lies with some of the tools.
Look, my topic is still quite narrow.
How is it narrow? No, look, essentially your product, as I understand it here, correct me if I'm wrong, your product is get everything you want.
That's right.
Correct?
But no one believes it. What was your first reaction?
Enlightenment in 2 days, how is that possible?
Of course, because all those saints meditated for decades in caves and still didn't succeed, right? Impossible. Rephrase it in your own field. I'm a master in the field of spirituality. It can be done in 2 days. Now rephrase it in your own field. Can a person earn $1 million or rubles in 2 days? Some might say no. The whole world might say no. Now if I come and I'm not an expert in your field, I'll tell you you're deceiving me. You know it's possible. You've been in this for a long time, for many years.
Maybe then, when you have fully discovered your talents, when you have accumulated some potential, you have, that is, well, sort of, a person who has never done anything in their life, for them to earn $1 million.
He won't come to you. He's not your client, not in your field, not in your programs.
What kind of person for it to work? What kind of person for it to work?
Primarily, a person must have a resonance with this. They should have been into spirituality. They tried various practices, but are not getting enough results. He meditates, visualizes, but he feels there's another step. He feels it's not enough. He's still not there. It's long, hard, and often fails, and for some it doesn't work at all. Some might say, affirmations don't work for me, meditation doesn't work for me. Well, I'm here for those people, not for beginners, but for those who have been in this field for a long time. I always broadcast loudly.
That actually limits your creativity.
I know, but it's true because I don't like making empty promises. If a person has never been involved in this at all, and they come to me, I don't know how they would find me. Maybe they stumble upon me by accident, let's say, from this podcast. Then they were never interested in spirituality. There's a chance they might succeed, but it's not the greatest chance. It's like if someone suddenly comes to you from the street and says, help me earn 1 million rubles in 2 days. Basically, you would say, well, maybe it's possible. I have enough skill to show, explain, and...
So okay, let's put it this way. What do you call enlightenment?
This knowledge about who you are.
I have some perception from the past like that enlightenment is the realization that you are everything and you are nothing and you connect with the world like you are the creator, you are God. But for me, look, it's just that this word, it's kind of loud and charged with very big, very big expectations, some kind of people's perceptions. I can say that I took ayahuasca, for example. I was in that state for quite a long time, several hours. I was in a state where I absolutely understood that I am everything, that I am a creator, that all people are just reflections of me, that all of this is part of the same thing, that everything is made of the same particles, that the air is made of the same particles as I am, and so on.
Ayahuasca is an intermediary.
Well, look, no, it wasn't an intermediary. Well, I feel it myself.
You come take it and it does its thing. Ayahuasca wears off. You are no longer in that state, you just remember. I call it an intermediary. I teach how to gain and uncover it within yourself.
Do you have ayahuasca without ayahuasca?
Well, yes. This is knowledge directly. without intermediaries.
I mean, it sounds cool, like as an offer type, what you are promising now is needed by everyone. That's absolutely certain. You know, people constantly ask me, Sergey, how do you raise your energy? How do you stay in such a great state like you? You have 24 hours in a day, and during these 24 hours, you are in some state, and everything around you is a tool. I was at a surf camp recently, and there were some great guys at the surf camp, but there were also some people who I somehow ended up in a new environment with. We were in the Philippines, incredible sun, incredible weather, the ocean, very warm water, great waves, surfing. This is what everyone puts on their dream visualization board. And they too, these people too. But they sit in this ocean and discuss some problems. So these words like pain, bad, not right, can you imagine this one, everything? And they live in it, they exist in it. Regardless of the picture around them, they simply live in it.
Look, Sergey, everyone is used to growing through hard life lessons, suffering. It's a habit that we extract pieces of wisdom and awareness from, and a person thinks that they are growing, progressing. It is considered to be noble. Suffering, yes, all this heaviness.
It's not noble, don't suffer, don't listen to this depressing music, just, guys, put this away. I mean, this is the first step to getting started. Well, I don't know, maybe you can reach enlightenment in 2 days, but this is also good. All this negative content, it's not simple, just remove this.
Look, to remove this, they need to have the desire. They must have the intention, the choice not to live like this, but they don't have it.
How is that, and how do you get it? Look, write in the comments if you think that your life isn't as great as you would like it to be right now. If you genuinely feel that way, this is the first thing. And second, do you really want things to be different, or do you just want to play at wanting things to be different? Just write down whether you want to change something or not. So let's say, look, let's say usually all the people around me, for example, they somehow declare that they want to change something. Well, specifically, I get direct messages every day. You can't imagine how many, like, send me money, you know, both in English and in Russian. Like, send me money. I want to start my own business. My house burned down. I have an illness. My mom has this and that. I need money. They always say, I need. It's like they are ready for...
Perhaps they are writing to you from a victim's position.
They are writing to me from a victim's position.
At that time, they are not ready to change anything. They hope for God, for Kasenka, for some other higher powers, third forces that will change something in their lives.
So how do we do it? What needs to be done?
But how can you do this against their will? I mean, this person...
What does a person need to do?
Look, a person usually, after going through a tremendous amount of pain and suffering, at some point might push off from it because they fell too hard and painfully. Some push off, some never do. So it's a kind of natural selection. A person either hears this inner call, some might call it the call of their soul, though I don't believe in individual souls, we can talk about that. And others might say it doesn't matter. This inner life energy that exists in each of us. Some hear it and want to act, create, live, generate the energy of creation, while others do not hear it. And most people, thanks to all these sufferings, at some point may wake up, may want to wake up. This does not happen with most people.
Look, I think that those who are specifically watching us are the ones who are kind of in the mindset that they can become better. Because why else would you watch Sergey Kasenka, right? You could watch, obviously, to suffer.
There are many reasons why one can watch you.
Why, for example? Well, it's clear that I attract a lot of attention. I have a resonant lifestyle and I do certain things. I produced content that resonates with people. It stirs something inside them. I understand that. But as for podcasts specifically, I don't really do that. I'm specifically talking about how to develop. Kind of about that. But they are roughly like this. I believe, guys, tell me, if you are like this, if you really let the thought in that life can be better, it can be different, that you need to find tools, that you need to start influencing it somehow, to accept the position of being the author of your life. This is the very foundation, really. So if you are like that, write to me. I just believe that you really are like that. What's the point of watching this if you're not?
I think so. People are already watching you quite a bit.
Some are already at a super high level, while others are just taking their first steps, for example. I believe that they all will get there, and there are different guides, and you are one of those guides. Tell us, how did it affect you?
So, I already started to explain that I use different practices. And at some point, I had to admit to myself that spiritual practices were keeping me at one level and not allowing me to develop further.
At what moment was that?
It was in 2015. My second cover for Yoga Journal had just come out. I was at the peak of my yogic, so to speak, career.
So are you in the yoga crowd?
In the community of yogis and meditators, I taught yoga meditation. And I realized that it had already served its purpose for me because these intermediaries, what they are doing, to draw the audience's attention to the spiritual path. Visualization, affirmations, and the like are kind of like spiritual rattles for people. They sound interesting and promise a lot. A person starts, they embark on this path, they begin to try. It's like they have a selection on display. They tried this practice, this one, this method, this technique, and they kind of step onto the spiritual path. And this is the main task of any spiritual intermediary, any practice. To entertain you and keep you on the path until your inner call and choice to know yourself and the truth becomes strong enough. And at some point, initially these practices are necessary because they set you on the path, but at some point, when you've played around with it enough and honestly look within yourself, you'll realize and say that, in principle, it's not as effective and fast for everyone as it could be, as you dreamed it would be, as you wanted it to be. There is something beyond the practices because people think that spirituality equals spiritual practices. And there's a next level that many don't reach because they get too caught up and attached. They have the illusion of progress. If I meditated today, I mentally check it off. I am progressing on my spiritual path. If I completed my practice today, check, I did well, okay, I can move on to my regular tasks.
How can a person understand if they are kind of stuck or not stuck? What is the measure?
If a person, let's say if you are just a beginner and have never been interested in spirituality before, then it's great that you are starting to practice. But if a couple of years have already passed, you're doing this, and you really want to make progress, you start to feel that some piece of the puzzle is missing. There's this feeling that there's something I don't know. Then the person starts jumping from one practice to another, changing practices, changing teachers, changing traditions, trying everything. But it's never enough for him anywhere. And he feels that this is not the truth, it's partial knowledge.
But why does he need the truth?
This is the most fundamental need of every person. To become a creator, to become who they truly are. To realize this in themselves.
In your world, do you imagine that the final point is the realization that you are the creator?
The final point is not just awareness, because that is not the main thing, but the creator's ability to consciously create this reality harmoniously, without suffering, without problems, conflicts, or all the drama that people are so used to living in because they don't know any other way.
Suffering, for example, I believe that suffering is quite
noble, isn't it?
It's an interesting feeling. At least when you constantly live in joy and such a...
You just don't know any alternatives. It's like, this is all you have, right? You don't know that it can be different. I'm here for those who are searching. I'm here for those who need this. Someone who is searching but doesn't know how to find it. They try one practice, then another, and yet another. They want to change something, but it doesn't work out. They feel this need. No practice, no spiritual intermediary, no techniques can satisfy her. You are still searching for something inside.
In 2015, you realized this wasn't enough for you. It felt like it was holding you back. What happened next?
I just gave up everything. I went to the Bahamas, where my boyfriend at the time lived. And I stopped doing yoga, I stopped meditating, I stopped practicing, I stopped working. I just gave up. Started living like a regular person. Just not like before when I would affirm, meditate, and be all into it from morning till night. Yeah. I just started living normally. I became disillusioned with all spiritual intermediaries because I realized that I had been meditating for several decades. Yet I still had problems in my personal relationships. They were still there, and I still didn't have enough financial stability, according to my own standards of what is sufficient. I was really suffering from this. I was dependent on men. I couldn't support myself. So in all areas, things were not good enough. And so I realized that I could no longer deceive myself. The practices don't work for me, and I can't teach them to people. So I absolutely stopped teaching. I left, and for 2 years, I really lived there without teaching anything at all. But the need to know the truth remained. And on March 10th, 2016, this happened. This happened completely, absolutely, and utterly spontaneously. I didn't take anything. I didn't meditate. It didn't come through intermediaries or practices. I freed myself, my mind, from the attempt to find something external. In sources, in intermediaries, in practices, in techniques, in external tools. I became disillusioned with them, and that was my blessing. I stopped doing it. The glass of my mind, so to speak, was cleansed. I wasn't expecting anything anymore. I wasn't searching for anything else. But the inner need to know the truth, who we are, how everything is arranged here, who I am, it remained. And at the right moment, I asked the right question, as it turned out. because it became the trigger for my awakening. I was just walking around the house. I was alone that day, and I was thinking about something abstract, and I asked myself, what is love? Honestly, I don't even remember what the context was or why, but that question, it came at the right time, in the right place, in the right state, in the right space, in that temporal continuum. It landed where it needed to, and it was so intense, strong, and honest, without any ulterior motive. I just wanted to know the truth about what love is. And as it turned out, love is who I am. Love, God, the universe. These are synonyms. I asked this question inwardly, to no one in particular, without any practice, without anything, and the answer came to me. In the next second, I became that answer, I became that love, and I experienced this state of realization of who I am. And it lasted for a week. I was sitting at home alone, and I was writing down my understanding of all areas of life. In other words, I was unpacking the entirety of existence for myself. Why things didn't work for me before, why I had problems in relationships, how everything is arranged, how matter is created, how relationships are created, who I am, who others are, what money is. That week was decisive, meaning the experience didn't last just a second or a day like with ayahuasca or something else. It lasted a week, and it didn't let go of me. And in that same month, for the first time in my life, I earned $10,000. That was in 2016. For me, it was money I had never earned in a month before. It was, 10 times more than what I used to make.
You were featured in various places, Yoga Journal, and you didn't even make $1,000.
In the early 2000s, a yoga teacher, an instructor at a yoga studio, earned about 500 rubles per group session. About 20 people come. I earned a couple of $1,000s a month at most in a good month.
Okay.
Yes.
So you made $10,000.
First of all, I immediately saw that you don't need to work on yourself for years, working through various programs. It is impossible to work through the illusion of who you are. It is pointless. When I saw and recognized who I am and gained this clarity, I immediately saw the programs and illusions that were controlling me. I simply rose above them. I stopped being them. They no longer ruled me. I saw that I couldn't combine the spiritual and the material. It was like my eyes were suddenly opened.
Why can't you?
At that time, I was a spiritual teacher, a yoga and meditation instructor, and I realized that I had an internal block that prevented me from taking money for it. It felt unspiritual, inappropriate, and wrong. In the paradigm I was living in, it didn't seem very good. I didn't create a scenario for myself where I would have more money, more clients. I felt that I couldn't connect the spiritual and the material back then. I saw all my false blocks regarding money. I clearly saw how to earn it, and I clearly saw what money is. And that month, I earned $10,000. And 2 weeks after gaining this knowledge, I met my husband, with whom I'm still together, 8 years later. I was already 33 years old when the knowledge came to me. If all my relationships before this were exactly heavy life lessons through which I grew, they were such, yes, sufferings, dramas, yes. Then, for the first time in my life, a relationship appeared that was happiness, completely right away. Everything was perfect for me, and it continues to this day, and it's impossible to believe. It's been 8 years. We had a child a year later. Before that, I thought I would never get married because everything was like this. I didn't want children, I lived like a spiritual hermit. I didn't need any of that. Everything turned upside down in my head, and I call that day my second birthday. When you were born as your true self. And this is what I wish for absolutely every person. That's why I came to your podcast, so that more people would learn about it.
So it turns out that you did it indeed without any external help?
Of course, without a middleman.
And do you tell people come to me?
I tell them how to do it without external help.
So are you intermediary?
I am a mediator. What does that mean? I am the finger pointing at the moon, but the finger that says, don't look at me, look at the moon, and I explain to them what it is. In my teaching, which is not really mine, it is the truth about who we are for each of us. It is not my teaching at all. There is not a single practice or technique in it.
What is there? Can you explain? How is it? Are there only words? So just your words, right?
Yes, but these words are not mine when you enter this program. It starts to unfold in such a way that you understand that these are your own words, and you and I are one, and what I am saying to you is what you choose to say to yourself. And you awaken and realize that it is you, and you come to this unity. This is my main program. A month-long course, a month-long retreat from start to finish, where I guide a person, And on the second day, they experience the realization of who they truly are. So in the very first lecture, I immediately explained to people what our relationship will be like, who I am to them, and how this works. So I immediately tell them that I am not just another guru for you, and don't expect any practices, because you have tried that path and now try it differently. Although you don't believe in it, you consider it impossible because it is something completely new and alternative. And it's impossible to believe in it until you have experienced it.
They come. What happens next?
Every day they receive a specific lecture that educates them. So first we remove all the false notions settled within us, these illusions about individual souls, about karma, about all these things that I devoutly believed in before knowledge came to me. The things I taught for many years until I became enlightened. And I help people cleanse themselves first, you cleanse yourself first, become disillusioned with the practices, because they have served their purpose. This doesn't mean that they are useless, that nobody needs them. It means they have served their purpose.
For me, meditation, you just say meditation is like a crutch. No, for me, for example, meditation is just a way to spend my time. And I, for instance, enjoy spending my time this way. So sometimes I like to go for a run, for example, and sometimes I like to swim in the pool. You know, it's like people say, why swim in the pool? It's not effective. Like, it doesn't burn fat.
I realized that for you, meditation is kind of a way to pass the time.
Well, it's just awesome. Yeah, I mean, for me, life is just a way to pass the time, because what else is there in this life?
Most people agree they don't live like you, they don't live this way. Most people use meditation for other purposes. They are not in the state where everything is great for me, where I do whatever I want, have time, can meditate, or do something else. They are not in this world, not in this reality.
What do you think? How can they reach this state? For example, do you think I need your training or not? Perhaps, maybe?
Only you can decide. If you feel it's needed, then it's needed.
So do I need it?
I can't decide for you.
How is it? Someone writes to you and asks, should I go or not?
I can't answer. If you have the desire, if it's your choice, it means you are ready to receive the information that you will get through me.
You give it to yourself. Is it like a conversation with God?
A little bit. Similar, but not quite.
Cool. Cool guy. Check out Conversations with God. Cool book. Do you recommend it, or is he kind of...
I was so impressed 12 years ago when I read it. Now I can say that it's definitely possible, but there are also many other ways But in the end, he still thinks he is conversing with God as a separate entity. He doesn't understand he is God, that he is talking to himself. And there's a lot of useful information there, but there's no absolute truth.
So, can you tell me about the soul? What does it mean that there is no unique soul?
There are no individual souls. Look, we have this idea in popular spirituality that we are bodies, and each of us has an individual separate soul. Somewhere out there, it's flying around, communicating with other souls, coming up with some plan for us to create here. In reality, duality and separation exist only on this material plane in the manifested world. On a subtle level, there is no separation. There are no divisions, no separate pieces, no individual souls. On the subtle plane, there is no separation. It is unity. We all share one common soul. Your higher self is my higher self. We have one higher self that has billions of bodies. The personality is separate. Don't confuse it. You are not the personality. You are not a homeless person under a bridge in San Francisco. It's as if one collective soul, a unified higher self, lives different lives through different bodies to gain multifaceted, multi-billion experiences. And if you ask yourself what drives you, personally, this is the profound question of the Creator. What else is possible? What else am I capable of? You are constantly expanding, like the ever-expanding universe. You push the boundaries of what is possible. Just like that, you are God, who is expanding. God pushes boundaries. What else can I do? How else can I live? What other way can I live?
And what is the point of this for God, if God is everything? What's the point?
Expressing yourself, being who you are.
Why? Why am I asking this? Because I had this kind of bad trip at the end of ayahuasca. I had the start of ayahuasca, well, everything was just great for the first 8 hours, but then the last hour was like, there was a disappointment in realizing that when I understand that I create absolutely everything, and there is no path to follow and no one to follow it, then everything becomes meaningless, especially in the context of setting some goals and striving towards them. It is completely meaningless because I set these goals in a world created by myself.
Yes, why is it pointless?
Because I will get there anyway, because I create this universe myself.
Yes, this is a very common thing, and it's something we go through in my program around the 8th lesson or so. This is something everyone goes through, and it's something everyone must go through. But look, it's the mind that says the end point, the goal is important, but why? And being a creator is when you affirm yourself in it, you begin to enjoy the process. So, when this creator energy awakens in you to its full strength, you can no longer do anything but create and express yourself. And there are no depressive things in that. Look at what happened when you experienced this unity. You were in unity. The ego mind kicked in, which asked this question and pulled you out of unity, saying something like, why? So it was your mind that figuratively whispered all this to you and confused you. And when you clear your mind and fully understand the depth of your thoughts and emotions, when you become deeply rooted and grounded in this state of being, not just for a single day like with ayahuasca, but when you truly become this, your main, constant, and unwavering desire is to create and enjoy the entire process.
And what motivates you and what do you create?
I enjoy the process of expressing myself as a connection between God and man. We are this bridge. We are both the creator and the creation. We are both human and God. We are the relationship between them. We are the relationship of the creator with his creation. And when we get to know ourselves through this, we begin to enjoy the process and create consciously. And choose. Remember, I said we have a choice. And even the difficulties you have prescribed for yourself, you see them in a completely different way, and you also enjoy them, including understanding why you are doing it. And there are no empty, apathetic states in this. There is an understanding of consciousness and its purpose. But you still find it very interesting. It's uninteresting when you lack the energy of life. But when you root yourself in the state of the creator, everything becomes interesting. You enjoy yourself, you derive pleasure, and you never lose your sense of purpose. Losing the meaning of life is a very common mental trap for many spiritual seekers, and we go through it.
How?
It's like a trap, and people are like, life is meaningless, I'm going back, living materially again, I won't think spiritually. And we leap over it, and I show people what lies beyond. A vast reality that provides even more thrill and pleasure than creativity and self-expression.
And what changes in people's matter when they pass?
As I explained with my own example, people start to experience changes because all those illusions they believed in fall away, and their self-identification completely transforms. You know, it's like believing. You believe that you are a person, right? You don't just believe it, you know it. It's such a deep conviction, it's your perception of yourself. My task in this program is to make you believe that you are God. It's very difficult, but it's also very simple because it's the truth about who you are.
So, you believe that you are God?
Yes, you too, as well indeed. Look, we believe when we don't know something. We believe in something when we lack knowledge. It's inside in every bit of our dirt.
If I know I am God, then do I not believe?
There is no point in believing. Why would you need to believe in something that you know as a fact, as the truth? You have no doubts. Faith is needed when you don't know 100%. You have to believe. Why do people often say blind faith? It means you believe in something you don't know for sure, but we replace faith with knowledge, and it awakens within you. Then you know it, and everything changes.
What is meaning of life?
Who is this question from?
From me.
This question is not from you. This question is from your mind. I repeat, when a person realizes who they are, this question doesn't even arise.
But how should I respond to it?
There is no answer to the question. This question is a ghost. It does not exist.
But when I pronounce it, it begins to exist.
Look, this is a question asked by a mind that is separated from the source of who it is. When you make a choice to become the source of everything, and to become the creator, to become who you truly are, you no longer question the meaning of life. You are life, you are meaning, you are everything. This question doesn't come to your mind because you are no longer the mind.
Okay, in 2016, something happened to you and you called it enlightenment and you started creating, right? So you were creating even before that, right?
I had been creating unconsciously before that.
To create consciously. What are you creating? What do you want? I'm just curious to understand what you want. Where are you going anyway?
I am simply expressing who I am. I am simply conveying who I am and who we all are. I am simply sharing knowledge. That is all I do. That is the most important thing to me. I want everyone to know this. I want people to stop choosing suffering because they don't know that there is another way of being.
Yes, I agree that suffering is not as fun as having a good time.
And so that they stop dividing, separating themselves from others, the inner world from the outer.
What will happen when everyone does that?
Look, if these different religions and beliefs disappear, There will be a single spiritual understanding of who we are. This can be called a universal religion, a unified spiritual understanding that brings people closer together, unites them instead of dividing them as religions, spiritual movements, and various teachings do now. We are all moving towards unity, whether we like it or not.
What will happen next? What do you think? Well, overall, the trend, I generally understand that right now the trend is on. In my mind, artificial intelligence and spiritual aspects got mixed up, like the creation of a sense of oneself as a person who creates their own reality.
We create unity, and artificial intelligence is an extension of us, just as we are an extension of the true self, that is God. We keep repeating ourselves over and over, but in the end, it's like the internet. It connects everyone. This is our very important and comprehensive training thing, and how to be one whole. When we interact with each other and there are no boundaries. That's how it is in everything. We are moving towards unity in everything, essentially. In religion, in interaction, in teaching, infobusiness is the same, right? We are erasing boundaries. We no longer need separate houses, institutes, or universities. We can all learn the same thing from different corners of the world. We no longer have these territorial boundaries, spatial or... We are definitely moving towards units, and we will undoubtedly get there.
What will really happen after we actually die?
Nothing will happen. What will happen to an apple that falls from a tree and rots?
With an apple?
Yes. If an apple thinks it is an apple and not a tree, nothing will happen to it. It will simply fall and rot. If an apple understands that it is not just an apple but the whole tree, it will continue to bear fruit and produce many different apples.
I remembered this for some reason because someone wrote in your Telegram channel, like, let them ask about what happens after death.
Yes, I'll tell you this. From my vast experience working with people, those who ask what happens after death are the ones who haven't learned to live. And I always tell them, you don't need to ask such questions. They are pointless. You need to learn how to live. Those who live and enjoy life are not at all interested in what will happen after death. People start to take an interest in this when they are on the brink of death, when they have an illness, or when everything is going badly. The question is, what will happen after death? A silly question. Like, a first grader's question. What's up with higher mathematics? How does it work? You don't need to know that at all. Be where you are right here and now, and learn to operate within your own reality. Just be here in this life, enjoy it, create consciously, know who you are, spread love and light, and that's it. Why do you need to know what happens after death? What difference does it make? People who die after living a full life, without any regrets about things they didn't do in their lives or ways they betrayed themselves in any way, are not at all afraid of death. They die with a sense of accomplishment, knowing that everything is fine, leaving behind children and grandchildren, and they don't have that panic about death. Those who haven't lived fear dying. This question torments them life. What happens after death? Guys, live. But if we answer from the perspective of meta-spirituality, which I founded and managed in America, what will happen after death? Nothing. If you identify yourself with your separate self, with a separate personality, you as a personality simply die. If you understand yourself as everything, then you continue in this everything. But for the ego mind, it is very painful to realize that this individual personality seems to disappear. Well, because they don't truly consider themselves to be everything. Maybe even on a mental level, we can say. We are everything, we are the other. But our ego doesn't care about that. We still feel pity and fear because here we are, and we have died. It's insanely scary, and this fear disappears only when you awaken to the truth of who you are. There, fear completely vanishes. There is only love and understanding.
What will happen in 3 years?
The future is not predetermined. We are the creators who shape this reality here and now, in every moment of existence.
And how do you live? Do you have any goals or directions you're heading towards?
Of course. Have you visited my American website? miraspirituality.org. Go check it out. It's interesting.
Do you want to remove meditation, affirmation, visualization, and all that?
I want to show that there is a next step after this because people don't know. They simply believe that being spiritual and spirituality and the spiritual path means spiritual practices. They don't know that there is much more to it, and that a spiritual intermediary, a spiritual practice, first puts you on the spiritual path, helps you connect with your true self, with who you are, brings you closer to it, and then it becomes a buffer between you and who you really are. It is what prevents you from fully connecting with who you are. You are the creator. As long as there is an intermediary between you and God, you do not become God. As long as there is a practice between you and your true self that you rely on and use to achieve your goals, you will never activate your personal power as a creator. My task is to teach people to create directly with the knowledge of who they are and the power of choice. Without practices, without visualization, affirmation, meditation, as a creator, by divine will, by managing it. But divine will is your will when you have realized yourself as God, directly, without intermediaries. It is simply the next level that we have collectively reached. In the past, it wasn't necessary. We weren't ready for it yet.
Anyway, if you look at it as a whole, this knowledge of who he is, it is necessary for everyone.
Yes, and you are definitely a great mentor and guide for the people who absolutely like you, and that's awesome. So, guys, all the links are in the desk. Bye.
Thank you all, everyone, for being here.
Nina Birkun, the main accelerator.